What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and today I'm locked, cocked, and ready to rock to bring you a review for State of Decay 2. As always, this review's caffeinated and pimped directly to your peepers at the speed of light, with everything covered in a no BS manner that's not going to be 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. Let's begin. When last we left our plucky little band from State of Decay 1, it was in a state that makes The Walking Dead seem like a show about long friggin' commutes. No lie, this is a game where finding the last Pop-Tart was a cause for hockey championship winning levels of celebration, and here now, we have State of Decay 2 from Undead Labs coming to us. It's a zombie killing third-person sprint and running out of supplies at the worst time oh shit simulator, and it's out on Xbox and PC on May 17th. It's on Game Pass for $10 for that subscription, or normal purchase, you can get it at $29.99. Let's see how it did, shall we? As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's my review for State of Decay 2. Sorry, but we gotta eat. Sheriffs in Forgotten Lands, and a long list of broken plans. Graphics start first. Yeah, it's State of Decay, all right. Listen, the original State of Decay shambled in on an engine capable of delivering the only thing I like to call old man frame rates. That means barely mobile and hitting on the teens. It would get down to 15 FPS at times, and while the combined edition shored up some of those issues, the game would have never been called State of Pretty. State of Decay 2 moves to the Unreal Engine, away from the original title's engine that was just specific for that game. It adds a number of graphical effects and then promptly does everything it can to see if it can crash your system. First, the good. When it comes to world design, I think we've all had those moments when something doesn't fit or doesn't resonate with the current theme of a title. State of Decay 2 absolutely nails it when it comes to environment, though. From decrepit old farmhouses with questionably filled innards to the lumbering thunder run of a juggernaut as he puts his head down and just does his best Roy Nelson impression, surprising you with speed and mobility even if he does get winded after like 12 seconds. New animations for some of the zombies are excellent and yet not overdone, so when you meet them and they're chewing on your face unceremoniously, at least it looks good. And then there are the excellent changes to the lighting system, because pretty much at night it's pitch black and, just like my sex life, everybody always ends up crying at the end. And that really was one of the biggest complaints from the original game, and they absolutely made sure that you know it's nighttime here. Listen, we've all had that game. In fact, most games do this, where nighttime's nothing more than the sun with a blue filter over it, and it bathes the ground like 200 yards around you, bright enough to spot enemies at a distance. Not so with State of Decay 2. The nights are jet black, so much so that it's hard to actually record footage that looks really good, and it makes use of those lights with you on your person and even the base's lights, and it makes them far more useful and shows that a simple lighting change can absolutely adjust the gameplay, especially from the original game. The first time it's truly dark and you're creeping around a hill in the night and you decide to flick on your light because you hear something and it throws out this feeble beam, and then you just see red eyes popping up all around you. It can be terrifying. Really well done. Sadly, the game does have some issues. It continues to look pretty barren, which is both a gameplay conceit, but also just frankly a sign that it's not as optimized as I think a lot of people like. This makes traversal with the vehicles a bit easier, though, than other games where, let's say, Mother Nature's taken back the world, but it does take some getting used to and just looks a little bit off. Performance-wise, on the Xbox and the Xbox S, you're looking at an always above 30 FPS, but nowhere near 60. But when you jump to the Xbox X, you see a number of improvements, including a Foliage System, which is just far better looking on the X than it could even come close to on the original or the S. Seriously, big change there, as well as 4K resolution and HDR. On the PC, it's a unique story though. First, while the game does have a large number of options to choose from in the PC settings for graphics, it once again, like a lot of other titles, misses true borderless mode or a rendering scale within it, so you might have a couple little issues here and there. Much ado has been made about the motion blur, and yes, on the PC you can basically turn it off by lowering the post-processing setting to low, and of course you'll take up some other settings there being low as well. When it comes to FPS, on a current i7 at 4.2 with a 1080 Ti as the high end, you can get a steady 60 FPS at 4K when it comes to frame rates, and a couple settings here or there. Those with 1080s should stick with a lower res and settings, but overall, the real issue here is not necessarily the frame rate, but it is a noticeable, at times at least, micro stutter. So if you're sensitive to micro stutter, it might be something you want to look into. Also, the Foliage System really is not that good in the game, even on the X or on the PC where it at least looks better. It's the draw system that's just so broken. It's got basically settings for low, medium, high, or ultra, or as I like to call them, nope, dead yard, oh look, there's one flower, and chia pet. None of them are smooth, and as you turn it up, the game basically just says, okay, no problem, we're not going to fix it, but instead they just throw down more grass here or there, like they're gluing a beard on a friggin' mannequin. That being said, it's impossible to not notice at times when you're traipsing through the tulips and you've got a bunch of bad guys behind you and you're just shooting off your guns and it's in the black middle of the night and all of that lighting is done really well, where the game can be said to actually look really, really good. It's just unfortunately it doesn't carry through the entire time. For a budget title, which basically this is, it looks okay, but no one's ever going to give it an award. Also, across all the consoles and the PC, I've actually had no crashes with the game. I have seen a couple times where enemies spawn weird or pop in from the sky, but it's actually been quite rare. Sound, music, and voice.
So listen, I used to work for this dude who could get pharmaceuticals without a prescription.
Yeah, that's called drug dealing.
No, not street drugs. Like painkillers and sleep aids. Stuff we could use. What do you think?
I'll consider it. Hi.
Catch you later.
Without more men.
Don't get any better than that.
And you know what? Let's do music first. This is amazing. This trumps State of Decay 1, but it also trumps many other games out there. It's not as John Carpenter-ish as I expected, and instead sort of flits around ambient, off-kilter synths and mended in with more melodic fare when you have these moments of respite between taking out a zombie horde who all decided the local tartan mall was just the coolest place for undead to be, to these cool ebb and flow tracks when you're sneaking across fields to get that one last corn dog you hope someone stashed in a long-dead refrigerator in a farmhouse somewhere. Overall, I'd say I absolutely loved it. And let's talk about voice. So where State of Decay 1 opened with a particular story and then branched out from there, in this game it sort of plays out a bit differently, and this includes how the voices are done. Now they're more interspersed moments that are tied together to somewhat make sense. Usually full sentences are a rare thing unless it's two main characters that you start with. Think Injustice 2, when characters meet one another and basically tell each other how much hurt they're going to throw down. Now that being said, I would have loved for it to be more developed too. It seems like a lost cause to not have some more fleshed out vocals for some of these characters. Overall, I'd say it's just okay, but I would have liked some more. And of course, that brings us to sound. I love this. This is excellently done. It's got excellent surround sound and layering to the samples themselves, and the first time you hear that insanely sharp report of a .22 long rifle echoing down off one of your towers, yes, that includes the shotguns, have a very good tonal range overall and fit within the world. When you decide to get up close and personal and do some Van damage, you grab your bat with a saw blade bolted to the end and start smashing people. The sound effects here have that kind of let's kill an entire hot summer worth of watermelon kind of juicy sound effects you would expect from a B-movie or, of course, from zombie games. Unfortunately, cars continue to sound horrible. They just do, and I'm not saying it's not fun to smash through a horde of zombies and there's one banging on your hood like an undead Tommy Lee. That's all actually really good. It's just their engine effects. They're whiny and terrible, and they don't really fit into the game at all. Also take into account the top speed of these cars is the speed of a friggin' well-charged hover round. Be prepared for some long-distance droning as you drive from, say, an outpost to your home base. And of course, that brings us to gameplay and a bit about the story. So State of Decay 2 starts with you picking from a small group of folks to begin the game with. Each come in pairs, a boyfriend and girlfriend, two high school chums, and so forth. And you'll want to look at their skills and stats prior to jumping in, as skills become ultra important even later in the game, but of course up front. Then you're off to a brief tutorial that basically shows you how to attack, search, take a quest or two, and then you're headed out, with you having the most difficult decision in the game at the very starting, which is what of the three towns do you want to go to. Each is fairly sizable for the way State of Decay plays, and you have a large map based near a set of mountains. You have one that's more farmland and one that's sort of a mixture of both. They all have their own difficulties and, of course, benefits, and you can, yes, travel between them later as you move your base. And then you're off, and the first thing you have to do is, of course, set up a small base of operations. So let's start there. Welcome to Patented Karak. Has everything you wanted. Movie theaters, towers, and a giant fucking hole in the wall. Get used to that crap, because nothing in State of Decay isn't without some negative. You find a base and it might have amazing already built structures like my creepy fantasy movie theater, which allows for me to put on plays, watch movies and so forth, and it raises morale, which is vital, especially in a game where everyone's raising holy hell and leaving. Think The Sims when you'd build a house and then remove the doors and watch them lose their crap, except here in State of Decay they have guns and like to beat each other up. Every base has locations like parking lots to park and repair and upgrade cars, indoor and outdoor lots, as well as special locations. And it's going to matter too. If your team isn't made up of a ton of people and you don't plan on worrying about a number of food gathering farms at first or other amenities, you might not really care for one base over another. Each station you place in the game not only has a number of things it can do, but it can also usually be upgraded, which brings more options, or modded, or destroyed if you want to make some room. And everything in the game has this amazing tit for tat for survival. You constantly have to decide little things like, do you run the generator to add light and morale to the base, or maybe have more options at a workshop, but also suffer the increased chance of an entire zombie horde coming to your home like a free concert. Of course, here the singers are eaten at the end of the concert. Now you can do all that. Luckily, there are a large number of home bases you can choose from on each map as well, so you can adjust how you play or adjust the base to how you want to play. But make no mistake, none of them are perfect. That's the entire crux of the game. As with almost everything in State of Decay 2, you can improve them with smart thinking. Do you have a hole in the wall? Then put a trap near it and maybe park one of your cars that's run out of gas in front of it to at least act like some kind of death filter. Or are you near a location with a lot of zombies that continually pass by? Then maybe take that same car and tear ass through some of the groups and watch your entire group celebrate human bullying by raising your influence, making everybody think you're just cooler. Because really, smarts is the name of the game here, and at some point you're going to have to venture away. Nothing in the game's forever, so you can either go alone with other survivors and in a vehicle, or multiplayer. Now, one thing instantly noticeable in the game is that vehicles are a bit harder to come by. Not impossible, it's just that they're well hidden or already damaged and need to be repaired to even be driven. Really, from start to finish, decision is such a big deal here. You might be camped out a little burned out shack and you see a car, but you can't tell what state it's in until you actually get to it. Or you can cross the street past a juggernaut and into the gas station, maybe luckily finding some fuel just in case the car is empty. Spoiler alert, yeah, it's probably empty. And since everything in this game is based on sound, from guns to even searching a friggin' cardboard box, you're constantly watching, humans and inhuman alike, to make sure you don't alert half a town. And speaking of towns, I really do like the way the people are set up in this game a little bit better than the first one. There's just something about it. Even in fact that you have a leader who's a sheriff, and when the renown spreads, people will want him to come help, even if it's just narratively with some kind of argument or decision. How's combat, you may ask? Well, it's got up-close weapons that are your default, as well as clubbing and cutting weapons, and then the choice to equip a ranged weapon as well for a 3 total. All of them are damaged somewhat over time, but can be repaired if you have the skills, or broken down into other parts if you have the equipment your base. Control feels good regardless if you're in a car or you're on foot slicing some enemies up. It really doesn't matter. It feels really well done. In fact, the shooting works incredibly well in State of Decay 2, which actually surprised me a little bit, and it just seems better than the original. Now, that being said, everything works the way it should here. You also have weapons with various types of attributes on the weapon itself, like adjusting swing speed, knockback, and so forth, so you may want to pay attention to those. It's funny because at some point you really do begin to notice how everything in State of Decay starts to overlap in this really organic way. Losing a person can be epically terrifying if they had specializations as well as, say, a lot of good equipment on them. But you might have had that moment where you're running out of food, nowhere near an outpost or main base. The people at your main base are freaking out, and you had just one more toolbox to check, but there was a zombie outside. They heard you and ended up killing you. That's what State of Decay 1 was about, and 2 really builds on it. There's so much change offered here and upgrades available to everything that the game really does feel completely different after 5 hours and then 10 hours. It plays dramatically different as new skills are unlocked, and certainly as new equipment is unlocked. It really does change everything that you can do. It doesn't make it easier, it just changes it. It gives you more options, and those options, strangely enough, when they can be lost like they can here, really does add to the poignancy. It can also piss you off. Now, I'm not saying that this is the game's fault, but God forbid you're like me and you decide to leave a map without enough equipment, and the next main base you find is literally a friggin' park bench. I shit you not, it had no upgrades. It was horrendous placement, and I had to completely change my entire gameplay style because of it, and I absolutely adored that. Overall, State of Decay 2 absolutely nails that teeter-totter balance that many zombie games don't really have. And like first-person shooters where a Deus Ex, Shadow Warrior, and a Far Cry can all be in that genre and add unique and different gameplay styles, State of Decay 2 does this for me for zombie games. It's only the second game after the original that really made me absolutely think strategically, and one where just as I thought, man, this has been pretty easy so far, I realized it's because everything was close to my base, and now that stuff is exhausted, so we had to move on. And then in the next 4 minutes, I lost 4 different people. One to a juggernaut who thought it'd be cool to tear somebody in half, another to a feral, and that's like fighting a goddamn crank-fueled Circus Soleil acrobat with a cannibal fetish, and another just left because they figured, you know what, if you're this bad of a leader, maybe I'm best by myself. And it was so crazy to go from such a big group to such a small group that fast. Now, when it comes to multiplayer, you can use your radio to tell others you're available for help and you get sucked away when someone on your list needs it, or you can join directly with up to 3 others. Luckily, I didn't have any extra crashes because of that, but I did once again notice a couple of those little spawning issues, and I've seen some performance issues on the PC for people joining up as well that you just may want to worry about. Also, much has been made about the tether system, including myself, and it is here. It's about 400 yards, which isn't a small amount, but with 4 people all getting attacked or spreading out into a small township under a time-sensitive assignment, it'll probably be noticed by some players, but it doesn't crop up as much as Far Cry 5. And of course, that brings us to the juice, the things that matter, fun factor. While not without the aforementioned faults in all the categories, I really did have a good time with the game. At all times, it absolutely nails a feeling of respite that offsets action that's in zombie shows and good games. The moment when you're in battle down to a last sliver of your health because you burned yourself by tossing a Molotov cocktail onto a group of enemies only to have it bounce off the friggin' eave of a house and burst on fire on top of your head. You get to the home base, you get in, and you can take that momentary breath before you decide what else to do. And I say moment for a reason, because the game has some unique choices that the first game didn't. In this game, there's a thing called the blood plague mechanic, which is if you're bitten by a particular zombie, you can be infected, and this can be healed or mitigated, but it requires you to go out and collect samples for your medical survivors to put a cure together so that they can heal somebody, and this, of course, is the typical tit for tat that I've been talking about. But let's just say for a moment, you're an evil sumbitch who likes to tell kids Santa ain't real like I am. You can just say screw it and euthanize them because you don't want to waste the time getting a cure. It is crazy options like that that really surprise me. Zombie games to me are at their best when they offer moral quandaries, but also when they offer advanced strategies, and we don't get a lot of titles that do this. And lastly, that brings me to AI. It's not the greatest. In fact, I found something really odd. If I was by myself and on a patrol mission of some kind or going and doing something, they really didn't work the greatest. A lot of times they would wait for me to get hit many times before they would come to defend me. But if I hired somebody to help us and also had that quest giver, the combat was so much better. I'm not quite sure what changed, but they were far more aggressive in helping one another and me than they were originally. So that's something to keep an eye on. We're now at the time to decide. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale, and rent being replaced by deep sale on PC. For me, it's a budget title. Despite its issues, this is absolutely something worth purchasing. You can get it for $10 with Game Pass. That's not bad, and Game Pass, of course, has a ton of other games that you can get for that exact same price. $30 if you want to take the full plunge. It doesn't require an internet connection at all if you just want to plunk around alone. Admittedly, it is more fun with a larger group of friends, more tense with 2, so that's sort of my style, and it's downright perilous at times with 1 person. It's not perfect by any means. It's not even close. But like the original game, this offers a multitude of unique systems that overlap both directly and in such a subtle way that at times it is very easy to go, damn, really? Because of some decision you made 2 hours ago in the heat of the moment. And then you're seeing the results right then. I absolutely love that. So that's it for me. I hope you liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Maybe check out Reddit or Twitter. And of course, you can become a patron and join through the Patreon website where you can get access to the Discord, jump in, talk about games with us, set up games. We're going to be doing a bunch of State of Decay together, talk about role-playing games, whatever you want to do in a nice, enjoyable environment. And as always, peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.